Well, we're now joined in studio by Volchere Kgekwane, who's the CEO of the National Black Business Council, Caucus rather, of the Black Business Council. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Good to have you on the program again.
Good evening, Peter.
So, 18.65% this year. I mean, that's a huge hike. Your thoughts on what Nersa has done?
First of all, I find it rather disturbing, simply because you are raising, this is adding salt to the wound. You've got a couple of years now of serious load shedding. So small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses alike, no one is spared from this, are now spending more money on diesel, a source of energy they never had to spend money on before. Right now, it's become the norm that you have to have a generator with diesel. People are now investing. You know, I have a member who's had to find 7 million rands to put solar on their roof of a building where they've got tenants inside, just to keep the tenants working without spending that much on diesel. Now, not supplying the adequate energy required for the economy to function. You are making sure that businesses have to shell out more money on diesel and other sources of energy. Now you increase the rate of the very debunked Eskom, who cannot supply adequate energy anyway, but you raise their rates. So it does not make sense to me. Yeah. Is the country actually planning on killing all the businesses in the country? There was a newspaper article on the largest chicken producer in the country who's struggling to keep up. So we're going to end up now seeing supermarkets simply not having chicken, simply not having anything that is dairy or anything that needs to be refrigerated. Is going to start getting less and less of. We're going to start having empty shelves simply because these guys cannot keep up with the diesel cost, and unless they take the chicken price so high that no one can buy it. So I'm concerned about the people leading this country. Do they understand the economics of the country? Do they care? This is a huge concern to us as NBBC.
So what do you say to people that suggest, look, it's either we bite the bullet or the lights go off completely and then everybody completely loses out? Because something has to be done, and Eskom cannot function on its current budget.
So Eskom's incompetence causes a country's economy to collapse, and then we must finance it into another collapse anyway, because what you are saying is just postponing the inevitable. Okay? If the electricity becomes too expensive and is there part-time, and you're subsidizing it with diesel and every other form of energy supply, how are those companies going to be sustainable? So in the end, we're going to have a blackout anyway, okay? The solution, you ask, how can we change this? I think the solution is to remove Eskom from being a competitor in the market and a controller of the market. The infrastructure that Eskom uses now must be taken away from Eskom, belong to the state, and any service provider who wants to provide energy must be able to rent that infrastructure to deliver the energy to their customers. And customers must have a choice. Do they want to use company A, company B, or company C? And it must not anymore, it must no longer be Eskom's single prerogative. Because as a monopoly, they are horrible. They monopolize a system they cannot run. They're incompetent to run it. So it needs to be diversified. And the only way you're going to do that is not to sell Eskom. Eskom can stay a state-owned entity, but remove the infrastructure from Eskom and let everybody be able to lease or rent space on that to deliver on that grid to their customers.
As the Black Business Council, your members...
This is NBBC.
Yeah, NBBC, sorry.
Yes.
You know how to run businesses.
Yes.
Now, one of the things about businesses, you can put out 100 invoices and it looks like you're doing well, but actually the crux is collecting the funds, right? And not having a huge debtors book. Eskom has got a huge debtors book because the municipalities just aren't paying. How do we fix that? Because even if we raise the tariffs, they're still not going to get paid. And if we don't change the culture of non-payment, it's going to be a dead end even then.
If you go into the township on the ground, and I hope one day you can go there and interview, I'll call communities for you in any random location and rural area. You must ask them, are they willing to pay electricity? They'll all tell you, yes, we're willing to pay for it. The problem why they don't pay for it is because of the way they are charged for it, the way it's consumed. There's so many unfair things that happen to communities, you know. Let me give you one example just quickly. A cable gets stolen, right? So this is a cable from the pole to their house, right? It gets stolen during the night, and then the family that's living in that house then calls the municipality and says, this is an Ekurhuleni, this is an actual case that I've dealt with. They called Ekurhuleni and say, look, the cable was stolen, we don't have electricity anymore, can you replace the cable? You know what the municipality says? They say the bylaw is that that family is responsible for that cable that's going to their house. So they have to spend 7,500 rands to buy another cable to place it there. That is why communities turn on municipality and say, no, we're not paying for this, because then that means that I'm subsidizing the crime that has just happened. So the crime is fine when it happens because I'm going to pay for it. So the municipality is not at risk. So I don't have to increase security on the cables. This is just one of the unfair practices that are done with energy and water and other services, right? Sewage. That is why communities end up just refusing to pay. Because even if they pay, they don't get the service.
But there are communities and people who just plug into the system and are stealing power.
There is in Nyoka, the people that... Yeah. Yes, what they are doing is wrong. But you have to understand it from the poor person's point of view. So it's an entire ecosystem that's flawed. It's not just that electrical stealing that's the one issue, okay? You've got people who have been in a temporary accommodation for over 20 years, what's called an informal settlement, okay? It's never formalized. So human settlement is moving people around like on a chessboard, right? So those people get frustrated. They've never had there's toilets now in Ekurhuleni as well, in Tembisa, that are plastic, horrific toilets that no human being should have to use that kind of service, right? But they are there because they're giving certain people a lot of money on that tendering process, not because they cannot build permanent toilets. It's the same thing with electricity. That squatter camp will sit there forever, not getting any electricity until these people either strike or start stealing energy. So you have to do something wrong from the community's perspective, and we deal with a lot of communities. You have to do something wrong to get understood or taken seriously by the municipalities. Had they been supplying the services, had the municipalities been working hard to supply services to people, when they receive something, they're willing to pay for it.
All right, so you are going to see an increasing number of business failures. Is that what the net result of this tariff increase is going to be?
Well, we've already seen them with load shedding. We're going to see a lot more now with this tariff, because now you have to subsidize, because the load shedding is not stopping because you are paying this extra tariff, this extra 18.6% increase. So you still have load shedding. You still have to buy diesel. You still have to maintain the generator, because don't forget the generator is a working engine, right? It's a truck engine. Most of them are a big size engine. So you have to maintain it. You have to service it. You have to fix it. And you still have to pay the higher tariff when the electricity is there, right? So how now a big component of your production or productivity is going towards energy because of a system that's not working.
Time after time, what I'm hearing from executives that have worked at Eskom and some that are still there is that at the heart of this is corruption. How do we fix that? Because it seems to me that is probably the biggest cancer that Eskom is dealing with.
Corruption. I think corruption, as we speak about it in South Africa, it seems to be the invisible scapegoat. No one can actually put a finger on, but they say there's corruption, right? What I can tell you is happening is incompetence, because if people knew what they were supposed to be doing and did it, we wouldn't have this situation. So whether that's due to corruption lack of knowledge and understanding of their job description, or lack of understanding of what they actually have to physically do? Are they not a qualified engineer? Or we don't actually know, because no one has done this study, and I think it's maybe time it should be done in Eskom to see really a skills audit to see.
So
if people
bottom line,
are capable.
citizens and businesses are paying for Eskom inefficiencies. That's what you're saying?
That's exactly what's happening. And we are the ones who have to finance everything. You know, when Eskom needs another 5 billion because they could not run this. Municipalities don't deliver; they don't pay Eskom also, and then they claim that it's the citizens who don't want to pay, but we're paying for it. At your house now, your electricity bill is going to go up.
It's been going up significantly. Volchere, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thanks so much indeed for joining us and giving us some insights on this crisis, because I can't think of another word for it.
It is a crisis, yeah.
Thanks so much.
We need a difference in how we're running this Eskom. It needs to change.
Thank you so much for your thoughts.